Good afternoon, Judge Mjali.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice and the commissioners.
Are you comfortable?
I'm trying by all means.
No, just relax.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
I must start by declaring that you and I have known each other since we're young women. We have a relationship that is closer than the usual one between ordinary colleagues. But that does not mean that you'll be getting any special favors from me.
Thank you, Chief
You hold 3 degrees, a BA Law and LLB from the University of the Western Cape, and an LLM in Commercial Law from Cardiff University in the UK.
Yes, Chief Justice.
You started your legal career in prosecution in 1989
That's correct, Chief Justice.
as a public prosecutor, then worked your way up to state advocate, senior state advocate, and in 2003, joined the Special Investigating Unit
That's correct, Chief Justice.
until 2008.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
And your judicial career began after you had undergone the former Minister Bridget Mabandla Aspirant Women Judges training program.
That is correct, Chief Justice.
So you are a product of that program.
Yes, I'm a beneficiary. Thank you, Chief Justice.
And soon after that, undergoing that program, that training, you were offered an acting stint as a judge in the Northern Cape Division of the High Court in Kimberley.
That is correct, Chief Justice.
How long were you there?
I was there from July 2009 right through to end May 2010.
And then you acted at the Land Claims Court
That is correct,
after
Chief
leaving,
Justice.
immediately after leaving Kimberley.
Yes, Chief Justice.
Well, but for a term.
It was from June right through until the time I was appointed on the 31st of October 2010. But then I carried on until end of December
But you were
to
appointed.
finalize whatever I was doing there.
All right. Having been appointed to the Eastern Cape Division.
That's correct, Chief
Tata.
Justice. Yes, that's correct, Chief
Right.
Justice.
So you've been a judge since 2010,
Since 2010, permanently.
permanently.
Yes,
And, but
Chief
you had a year acting in that position under your belt.
Yes, Chief Justice.
You have also acted at the Supreme Court of Appeal.
Yes, Chief Justice.
When?
That was in October 2022, right through to the end of November. And then again, from the 1st of June this year up to the 30th of September.
So that is 2 terms
2
now.
court terms, yes,
All right.
Chief Justice.
When does the current stint end?
It ended on the 30th of
At the
September.
end of this 3rd term?
Yes, Chief
All
Justice.
right. You've been before this body before, and it appears that the concern on the last occasion was that you may not have acted at the SCA long enough and had not acquired enough appellate experience. What would you say to well, it's not a perception, it's palpable, it appears from the questioning. That
Yes,
was
Chief
put to you.
Justice. What I can say with regard to that is that I have now been invited and accepted invitation to act in that court from 1st June right through to the end of September. I was involved in 12 matters in that court and allocated 2 judgments to write. Unfortunately, one matter that in which I was a scribe had to be struck off the roll. But I have written a judgment in another matter, and I've also written a judgment which we are co-writing as colleagues But the unfortunate thing is that those judgments they are still in the process. They have not been delivered. But my involvement in the 12 matters that I was involved in gave me enough opportunity to learn and edify edify my experience in that court. In addition to that, I have been a judge now for more than 15 years, sitting on appeals. I have been at times a presider. I've sat in full bench appeals. I've lost count. Ever since I started acting in 2009, this has been the practice. I'm of the view that I have accumulated sufficient experience to make a contribution to that court.
So you don't have a judgment in the Supreme Court of Appeal as yet?
I have two that I mentioned in my questionnaire, which were delivered during my last stint in the SCA. One of them being S versus Zondi,
Yeah.
and then the other one was Ricardo Spani. Those were delivered during my last stint. Unfortunately, during this stint, although I circulated my judgment soon after, it was, I think, about a week or two after we sat, I'm still awaiting comments from colleagues.
How many judgments have you written on estimate in the High Court?
Sure.
Reported and unreported?
CJ, they would be in excess, I think, of 200. That's just thumb-sucking. I have not kept count of how many judgments I've written, but in the High Court, that happens on a regular basis.
How many of those reported, if any?
I note the GCP has mentioned some judgments which I didn't take as being reported. They mentioned 3, I don't know. And then there was one that formed the subject matter of discussion in my last interviews, which is the Kohtliso matter, which went up to the Concord and confirmed. There's also a Ndabeni matter which features in my profile as being, which was confirmed by the Concord. I have not kept track of how many reported judgments I have.
But you say it's a number.
Yes, Chief Justice.
Do you have any outstanding judgments, reserved judgments that is sitting there?
Chief Justice, except for the judgment that I mentioned as in my questionnaire, in which I'm not a scribe but a colleague, I have no other reserved judgments.
Did you get a chance to write during your acting stint in the Land Claims Court?
Yes, I wrote some judgments in the Land Claims Court.
Well, I'm relying on the list drawn by the
By
GCP,
the GCP.
but they don't say it's a closed list, so one does not know.
Yes, they said they managed to get this
Hold of these ones.
the list that they've
All right.
given.
All right. Thank you, Judge Mjali. I will hand over to Deputy President Zondi to put questions to you if he has any.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Mjali.
Good afternoon, Deputy President.
Okay. I'm not sure whether it was a mistake on your part. You seem to have completed the wrong form. The questionnaire that you completed it's a questionnaire for people who are still applying for judicial appointment, not for judges. You see, there is a questionnaire for judges. Your questionnaire, page 9, it's question 9 of your, it's written, paginated, page 9.
Yes, Chief.
It says questionnaire for candidate for judicial appointment, but the form that I think that we should have used, it's a questionnaire for judges. Well, the reason why I'm asking this question is because some of the questions which, well, arising from the question that were put by the Chief Justice, if you had used the correct form, that information would have been supplied, like judgment that we have written, judgment that were successfully appealed against, judgment that were dismissed on appeal. That information is lacking in that form. So I think that using the wrong form did not help you to sort of market yourself.
Deputy President, I looked at the advert. This was my question too. The advert directed us to this very form that I completed. And I wondered, I saw the difference in the forms, but I wondered why. But this was the form that was attached to the advert.
And well, some of the concerns that were raised by my colleagues at the SA was that you hadn't written sufficient number of judges from which one can assess your suitability. I'm sure it was based on the information that you provided in this form.
Come again, Deputy President.
Well, sorry. One of the concerns that was raised by some of the colleagues at the SA was that you haven't written sufficient number of judgment which one can use to assess your suitability and readiness to be appointed. And I'm sure that comment might have been based on the information that you supplied in this wrong form, because if you had used the correct form, that information would have been reflected here. Like, I've written so many judgments, I've got so many judgments that were taken on appeal, so many judgments were dismissed on appeal, so many judgments were upheld on appeal. So that information seems to be lacking in this form.
May I again refer to the advertisement? I blame that on the advert because that's the form. The form that I completed is the form to which we were directed. Previously, on the previous two occasions I had to come before this body, I completed a different form, but I thought things had changed when we were directed to this new form. And the information that I supplied when I applied initially is, I thought it would be on record before this body.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, fair enough. And the other thing that they raised was you haven't acted at this SCA long enough and do not have sufficient experience. What do you say about that?
Deputy President, my response there too would be, I have only been invited to act 2 times in that court. And on both occasions, I never refused. I accepted the invitation. The unfortunate part is I can only act in that court upon invitation. And I acted in that court. On the first occasion, I managed to deliver 2 judgments. On this occasion, I mentioned that my judgments, where I had to write, were circulated timeously.
Well, other than that, I've sat with you and your contribution to the debate during the hearing was very constructive and it facilitated the conduct of the hearing. Thank you very much, CJ.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you, TP. Commissioner Matolo Glepu.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Mjali.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
You know, one of my concerns was I understand maybe you've completed the wrong form, but the same wrong form that you completed, I'm looking at paragraph 11.1.
Come again, Commissioner?
I'm saying even if I have to give you the benefit of doubt, the same wrong form, paragraph 11.1, section 2, it says the legal background. Please outline your entire career in law, giving an indication of your principal areas of legal interest and involvement. Then you respond and say C6 above, paragraph 6 above. When one goes to paragraph 6 above, it does not tell us about your areas of law that you know, I'm just thinking that maybe you paragraph 6 above, you say you worked in the Department of Justice. Those are not the areas of law. I mean, I'm just trying to think because this is not the first time you came in. What happened?
Commissioner Lepo, I was a public prosecutor from 1989, and that's criminal law. Senior state advocates, it's all criminal law, special investigating unit that involves, it's not criminal law, it involves giving legal advice. I was a legal representative there who had to channel investigations and give legal advice. And then there was OCJ, the Judicial Training Program, and then as an AJ. I thought that outlines my career path.
A follow-up, I just think you did yourself an injustice by not reading the question, even if it's a wrong form. What you are describing now is what you should have completed and said, these are the types of law. That's what we want to say, because you are going to the SCA.
I take the point, Commissioner.
Okay.
Commissioner Pillay.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Justice Mjali.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
On the topic of doing yourself an injustice, Justice Mjali, last time that you were here, both Chief Justice Zondo and President Monimela spent some time taking you through your selection of judgments and why it is that that selection is so important. You know, the JSC sees that as an occasion for you to showcase your capability, the depth of your experience, and the kinds of matters that you've written on. Now, against that, and I don't know if you recall that that was covered in your previous interview.
Yes, I recall that was covered. It was question 9 point.
Now, against that backdrop, you put up the Ndabeni decision. It's the first judgment that you referred to in your application.
You mean, are you referring to the last questionnaire, the last time?
No, this time round. You put up the Ndabeni judgment. I think it's
Are
the
you
first
referring
judgment.
in which?
If you look at page 25, paginated page 25 of your bundle.
Yes, Commissioner.
Now, there's a number of issues that we can raise with the Ndabeni judgment. Let me just suffice to say this, Justice Mjali, you put up a judgment that's made up of 6 paragraphs. The bulk of the judgment is dedicated to establishing that the matter is unopposed. And really the only reasons provided in the judgment comes right at the end of the judgment in one little paragraph where you say that the applicant's version is unopposed and there's no legal impediment to granting the order and therefore you grant the order.
Which paragraph are you referring to?
It's the last paragraph of the judgment, it's paragraph 6. So everything that happens before paragraph 6 is just to establish that the matter, that there is no answering affidavit before you. There was a Rule 30 filed at some point, but the Rule 30 was abandoned. You see that, Justice Mjali?
Yes, I see that, Commissioner.
So really, the only thing in your judgment is your paragraph 6, where you say that there is no opposition. In other words, the matter is unopposed. The only version before you is that of the applicant, and that there's no legal impediment to you granting the declarative sought.
May I just comment about the Ndabeni judgment?
Yes.
This is the judgment that went through scrutiny, through the SCA, through the Constitutional Court. I've given my reasons here that if one looks I must have given my full reasons in the application for leave to appeal, because I must have written this one in haste. There is a judgment on the leave to appeal that went through the SCA, and there it was subjected to a lot of scrutiny, and as such, partly overturned by the SCA, and then confirmed by the Concord.
So all I'm questioning, Judge Mjali, is why it is that you would include this judgment as a sample or as a showcase for you of your judgment writing.
It's a judgment. I must have made a mistake not to include the application for leave to appeal, because that's where I elaborated on these issues. This one was done in haste just to give reasons for judgment. And then when the appeal for leave to appeal, I gave them full reason, and that is the appeal that was taken to the SCA and confirmed. In the reports, you will get the remarks that my judgment was subjected to scrutiny, and the SCA found no reason to tamper with my judgment except for paragraph 2 of the order. And the Concord went to the same scrutiny and found my judgment to be sound, and there was no reason for the SCA to have tampered with paragraph 2 of my order.
So if I understand, Judge Mjali, you're saying that the real judgment you would have wanted to showcase is your judgment on leave to appeal.
That is correct. I must have, because I did this in haste. Maybe I should mention this, that I had no intention of putting in an application this time, but I had to be, at last moment, collate something to be put in after a lot of pressure was exerted on me.
Can I just say this, Judge, these little things, completing the correct form, putting up the correct judgments, they all carry real significance, because when we consider your application, we do it well in advance of you appearing at the interview. So I just wanted to raise that issue with you.
I take the point, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Pillay. Commissioner Mangan?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Justice Mjali.
Good afternoon.
I need to follow up on this statement. Are you appearing before this commission on your own volition, or under pressure of someone else?
No, it's not under pressure. It's responding to the call to serve.
So as you respond to that request, you had to act in a rushed manner.
Because the time, Commissioner, was close to closing time.
Okay.
And I asked my secretary to collate my judgments. I gave them and assumed if Commissioner, you would look at my last papers that were submitted before this commission, the application for leave to appeal was fine. That was the correct judgment. So the error.
No, it's fine. I'm not ready on Ndabeni.
Yes.
Here comes my question. May I draw your attention to page 16 of the...
16.
Yeah, 16. It deals with your questionnaire.
Yes.
Paragraph 9.4. There's a question there that asks, have any of your judgment been taken on appeal? Indicate with an X. And you answer the yes. And the next question is, what was the result of the appeal? And you say the appeals were unsuccessful.
Can we read that question in context, Commissioner?
Yes, I wanted to do so, but in the context of time.
The context.
Yeah, I
That the
started
context
where...
there is, did you act in any division? It starts in page 9, this is question 9. If you have
I
sat as
saw
an
that,
acting judge,
I saw that.
thank you.
It asked you when were you appointed, you said Northern Cape, in which year, and you mentioned 2009 up until 2010, and you made mention of the Land Claims Court. But the import of the question is, have you written judgments, and have any of those judgments...
As an acting judge.
No, I don't know where you take the acting
It's
judge.
9.4, it's question 9.
Yeah.
If you have sat as an acting judge, 9.1, in which division were you appointed? And I answer in that context. I sat in the Northern Cape High Court Division as an acting judge, Kimberley, and as well in the Land Claims Court. That's why I do not mention the Eastern Cape, because I'm answering this in the context of an acting judge.
So,
And then it goes now, 9.2, please give dates of appointment. You will note in 9.2, I've given dates as an acting judge.
So seated here today, have any of your judgments taken on appeal?
I have judgments that have been taken on appeal. In my last form that I completed, I mentioned which judgments. And this was the subject of a discussion with the president of the SCA. She said I mentioned only 2, and she found a third one, which judgment turned out that I was not the scribe there. Yes, I accepted responsibility because I was the presider. That was the judgment that was taken on appeal and overthrown, which I had not mentioned in my questionnaire last time. I mentioned 2. It's on record before this body that I mentioned 2 judgments that were overthrown. One of them being Hahoff, and the second one being Khulumeni versus the Democratic Alliance. That was it's termed in the media the toilet interview case. That was the judgment I was overturned in. I mentioned the 2 Hahoff, I dissented there, and that judgment went to the SCA, but the SCA did not agree with me.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Commissioner, Commissioner, by the way, I forgot about you.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Mjali.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Yes, Judge, the difficulty that I have seems to be an issue of lack of attentiveness on your part. You applied last round, so you know the form that must be completed. The form that you completed on its face is obviously not suited for you. And I must say that it's uncomfortable sitting here that of the candidates that we've seen today, you're the first candidate that has completed the wrong form. So when you say that you were directed to the wrong site, to the wrong form by the JSC, I'm not sure that we should accept that at face value. We have to ask the question, what about the other candidates?
Thank you, Commissioner. Maybe what would save...
Maybe let me finish.
Let her finish the
Maybe let me
question,
finish.
please.
I'm expressing to you my concerns, and then you can comment after that. So there's that concern that you complete the wrong form, which on its face is clearly wrong for you. But this is not the first time you do this. In the sense of, it's not the first time you complete a form to be elevated to the SCA. I have listened to the discussion with Commissioner Pillay, where she discusses that the judgment that you put in, and then you answer. You're not dealing with the question that she's asking, and suggests, or what the proposition she's making to you, which suggests you're not quite attentive. But lastly, what also concerns me is you say you tasked your PA to put together your judgments and you assumed that she has done it right. I would be extremely concerned that a judge of the SCA, which is appeal court, is happy to leave things in that way. You gave it to your PA, it means you didn't check it. It's one thing perhaps in the High Court where we all know we have a second bite in the appeal court, but to know that in the appeal court we would have judges that are not attentive to detail would be a matter of great concern to me, and I expect it should be a matter of great concern to people who litigate in the SCA. You can comment if you want to.
Thank you, Commissioner. Maybe what would save the day would be to look at the website, to look at the very advert. I queried this when I completed. The form itself was completed by me on computer. But then I asked my PA to bring my judgments, and then I looked at the judgments and thought that the judgments that I had attached last time included the application for leave to appeal. I had attached this judgment last time. I must have made an error in this regard. But what would save the day with regard to completing a wrong form? I would ask the Commission right now to look at the very advert and see which form we are directed to. There's no demarcation for people who are applying for the first time and judges who are applying to be elevated to another court. There's no demarcation there. I am certain about what I'm saying.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Marumakai, do you have questions for this candidate?
No, none, CJ, thank you.
Thank you. Judge Mjali, I don't see any further hands. We have reached the end of your interview. Thank you for making yourself available.
Thank you, Chief Justice and the commissioners.
You're excused.
Thank you.